supposedly repercussions. Pardon?
She would have been on.
Not at the wing level. That's CI at that point.
Yeah. And so, actually, question for you.
Absolutely.
In terms of finances, what do you look at for audit?
So at the squadron level, we're primarily focused on, do they meet quarterly and do they have a record of their meeting minutes?
Okay.
Pretty much everything else around actual money and dollars, we leave up to the wing finance because there's I'm sure you have your own processes for those. We just really are making sure that they're having those meetings and that they're being recorded properly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and we also do make sure that the finance committee is appointed correctly.
Perfect. That's very helpful.
So when it says that, must be appointed in writing, your best way to accomplish that is like some kind of memorandum, MFR from the squad, because a lot of people will say, well, it's in e-services. I'm here to tell you, e-services is a jumble, especially when it comes to yeah, and looking at anything chronologically. The committee report that's in there, if your membership lapses, it'll drop off. So an MFR appointing the finance officer and the committee is the best way to prove to the IGs that you're compliant with that.
So could you piece it together using the other tools? Maybe.
Yeah, you could. I mean, if I have a hard time finding it, I can say, well, okay, give me your 172.
Yeah.
And I can kind of sort of use that. Now, am I bending the rules a little bit by doing that? Yeah.
So I work in finance professionally. I do it in Civil Air Patrol. I used to do it previously in church. That's honestly so tired. Go back up.
It's the best church calling, by the way.
Yeah, but for that, it was one thing I always thought about is every 6 months I'm going to be audited. I know that. So as I do my documentation, I'm preparing for that so that when they say, show me this check, show me this information, I have it ready and it's already lined up. I hate having to go back and do rework that had I spent an extra 15 or 20 seconds at the time the initial thing happened, it would have made the overall audit process later on so much cleaner and easier. So I know you worked for KPMG. I used to work with them as well, but I was the recipient of many requests from the auditors at KPMG. And I just knew that if I could, over the various months when I was working on things, think about what they're going to be asking, because I know a lot of the questions are the same as they asked last time and the time before and the time before. It's making my life a lot easier if I just save my files, if I have things in the right place. So I mean, in writing, so for the audit purposes, that's why you need this in writing. We also want to have people on the audit or on the finance committee who are aware of the organizational needs of the committee or of the unit. So in the wing, we have people who are involved in operations. We have people who are involved in the cadet program. So when I first joined, there was nobody from the cadet program on the finance committee. What does that mean? Cadets are a very large part of our program, and if we don't know what they need, what their plans are, hard for us to set aside the money and prepare for what they need. So we have fundraising activities, we have expenses that are planned, and if they don't have a voice, we're just not prepared for what they're going to need over the course of the year. Sarah, do you mind advancing? So the role of the finance committee, first off, we need management and oversight of the unit funds. Why does that matter? Anybody?
Well, there's a fiducial responsibility, and we don't want people stealing our money.
Yeah, so money is one of the things that is, I'm not saying easy, but like of things that can be misused, money is a pretty easy one. Do people like money? I've noticed people tend to like it. Go to casinos, not just for.
It's one of the things that can get you in jail. There aren't a lot of Civil Air Patrol things that'll get you jail, but money stuff can't.
Yeah. And we just want to make sure that we are being smart about what we have. We have a finite number of dollars available to us, and we want to use them well. And so that's point two. We have, like I said, not infinite resources. We have to be prudent in how we use them to fund and pay for or take care of our missions. Second, we need to protect our cap assets. So we have airplanes, we have cadets, we have buildings, we have all these things. We're trying to make sure each one of those gets the right level of care. With cadets, we have a cadet safety program because there have been problems in the past, and that is a thing we need to make sure doesn't happen again. With our assets, I'm sure some people have been kind of lax in their use of unit funds, and so want to make sure that we have management and oversight into those. Establish a positive tone at the top. If you ever talk to an auditor and talk about their frameworks for how things operate, tone at the top is one thing they talk about a lot. Does anybody know what tone at the top means?
What's the first word?
Tone at the top.
Tone at the top.
Yeah.
Any organization, the leadership and their attitudes and their example and their values establishes how well that's going to go.
Yeah.
I was a teacher and served under a number of different principals through my career, and it's amazing how much difference it makes. So it's critical.
Yeah, so if your leader says, you know what, we bend the rules, we're okay with that. If that's the case, guess what these people who report here are going to do? They're going to bend the rules. But if you say, we care about this, there's a reason we ask you these questions and talk about this in a regular setting, we care. We're going to make sure that we're looking at things appropriately. And that tone at the top really does help to make sure that our people know this is serious. We're volunteers, but we take it seriously. So there's actually an interesting story I heard. I think it was a museum in Washington, D.C. They had a lot of volunteers who worked there. They volunteered at the gift shop. And because they volunteered, they kind of felt like the museum was something special to them. And because they volunteered, they also felt like maybe some things in the gift shop wouldn't be so bad if I took a little something here and there. So they kind of had this entitlement that came from volunteering there. And so the losses in that gift shop, I don't recall the exact number, but they were very, very large because people kind of felt like they were entitled to these things. In Civil Air Patrol, do we volunteer? Do we spend a lot of time and effort? I'm guessing you as a unit commander, you're putting in more than a few hours.
I'm putting in a lot of fuel just to get to my meetings.
Okay. Are there things you're like, oh, well, since I do this, fuel, that's a finite cost. You're like, well, I can just take something else somewhere else to make it work.
No.
We don't do that. We want to make sure that we're, above board in all our activities. And then as Major Borden said, we need to record that or keep record of that meeting having happened. Again, prepare with the audit in mind. You're going to be asked these questions. Make your life easier. All right. So we talked before about being compliant. We follow the rules. We're trying to make sure that everything we do is in line with those regulations. We also do budgeting and financial planning. Does anybody here love budgeting?
It's easy.
For Civil Air Patrol, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
But do we love it? Probably not. So I'm a CPA. I'm guessing you're a CPA. And I used to do budgeting like for companies for a long time, and that's fine. For Civil Air Patrol, again, we kind of know what the costs are going to be. There are some things that are more variable, but it's not that bad. Financial reporting for squadrons, this is one of the accountabilities, but it doesn't really do, there's not a lot to do. So on a monthly basis, I, as Wing Finance Director, send out financials showing the current state of each unit. I don't really think there's much you have to do. But if you have questions about the way things look, give me a call, send me an email, and I'll help. Risk management.
We do basically a management report every quarter to show what our cash position is going to be on September 30. From that point on.
So you can forecast things. I'm guessing relatively easily. Do you have donations? You have donations from individuals.
We have donations and dues.
Okay. You've got a hangar in St. George, so those are costs that not every unit has, but you can plan for it. And you kind of know over the course of the year we're going to have X amount of dollars costs, and you can plan for it. So that's great. And then talked about so internal controls. We haven't talked about it yet. We'll actually cover that really quickly.
All right.
Oh.
Trying to make sure we're up and
Oh,
running.
you're fine. You're totally fine. So what are internal controls? I'm going to read this verbatim. It says, their activities layered onto normal operating procedures of an organization with the intent of safeguarding assets, minimizing errors, and ensuring operations are conducted in an approved manner. So internal controls are, what are things that prevent us from doing things wrong? Do we have any controls you can think of in CAT, in finances, that help prevent mismanagement or fraud? What are some things that we do?
You have a, is the 172 that you have to indicate who has the authority to request funds or?
Sure.
Approve funds.
Yeah, so how much cash does your unit have on hand?
In your account, you mean?
No, how much
On
cash?
hand.
Dollars, physical dollars.
That's almost zero. Once in a while, somebody will make a cash contribution for their dues, and so I'll have $50 that I have to deposit with that.
Yeah, but generally, we're not handing cash around. Like, you're like, hey, I bought this thing. I'm not gonna give you cash. We'll just give you a check to reimburse you. But if you have cash on hand, that's the easiest type of money that can be stolen. Can a check be forged? Sure. But if cash disappears, that $50 bill that you have looks just like the one that I got from some other job, you know? If it misses, it's missing from your pocket, who knows what the source was.
So if somebody gives me cash for
Yeah.
dues,
Yeah.
I will, I fill out whatever that form is that you need to receive that tells you what cash is coming into Zions Bank.
Yep.
And then I also send you the deposit slip. If I get cash, I'll usually send the email that I send to you all to the person that gave me cash, so
Okay.
they see that it went.
So you don't mail that cash you received to Nick Cook? You don't send cash in the mail?
Mhm.
Good, that is a great answer, because
Good answer.
that is a terrible way of doing things. So actually, this is one thing that caused a problem. There were some donations that a unit received, and they handed them to the wing administrator, which you deposit them directly is the right way to go. And so we had to call out the fact that, so the administrator said, hey, I got these cash donations, they didn't get deposited the next day. And he kind of raised his hand saying this was not the right way of doing it. And we were given the guidance, like, have the unit either get a cashier's check, so that way it's converted into a check form, because fraud on a check is not as easy as just cash disappearing. So there are things we can do to make sure that we're kind of managing the risk associated with that. Colonel Hess, can he approve his own reimbursements? Why not?
Yes, have somebody else sign those checks.
He does. When I was relatively new to Wing Finance Director, I was at the Wing building just one afternoon, and he was there, and the Wing administrator was there. Do you each know Nick Cook? He's sharp, like, he does a really good job.
Yeah.
My perspective, like, I have a lot of confidence in him. Colonel Hess and Colonel Cook, they put together these checks, and they needed somebody else to sign them. So they said, hey, here are these checks, can you sign them? I'm like, sure. Where's the backup? And it wasn't out. They had to go get the documentation for me, and I was leafing through each thing to make sure that they were actually expenses that were relevant, that they were correctly approved. And then at that point, I signed them. Colonel Hess jokingly gave me a hard time, like, oh, you want to see all this stuff? Absolutely.
Good for you.
Do I trust Colonel Hess? Yeah. Do I still have documentation? Yeah, absolutely, every time.
So one of the internal controls is the finance committee itself.
Yeah.
I think you have to have 3 members to make a committee.
It's
And when we,
minimum of 3, yeah, because you
Yeah,
can't have an
it's-
even number.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't.
so then when we rented the hangar, we moved the plane from one hangar to the next in St. George. The person that we rented the hangar from was on the finance committee.
Okay.
And so we did it wrong the first time. We approved the contract for the rent. And I think it probably went to National, and some JAG or somebody at National said, wait, you can't have the person that you're renting from signed up, sign off or approve this in the finance committee. So we actually had 2 more members of the finance committee excuse him, and the 4 of us did the rule.
Okay. Self-dealing, we're trying to avoid that. So I know at my company, as we sell bonds into the market, we can sell them to an investment group in the company that manages pension funds. If you manage a pension fund, you can't self-deal. So essentially, any money we would have made on this, we refer to it as carving it out. We take that money out and say, we're earning nothing on this. This is an actual arm's length deal. We're getting no benefit from it, so other people will get that, any profit that exists from selling those bonds. So it happens all over the place. We gotta make sure that those controls are also here. So that self-dealing that could have happened, it was recognized, it was caught, and then resolved. It ended
Well,
up
it's
being,
nice to know that somebody else up there does look at that stuff.
yeah, it matters. We do care about it. So one of my favorite internal controls at my company, I'm required to take 2 weeks off. I'm not sure how KPMG was, but because
We can never get too.
yeah, because I manage like large amounts of money, if I am, there's the chance that if I were to be committing fraud, if I'm there every single day, I could keep covering up my fraud. So, interesting story, the junior high I went to, there were lunch ladies, and over the course of about 20 years, they stole $500,000.
Wow.
So they started working there right about the time I was leaving junior high. They were thought of as being like the most diligent workers. They were there every day. If they were sick, you know, they're still showing up and pushing through, making sure that they can take care of anything that has to be there. What they were doing is they were shorting the amount of money going into the till each day, and that paid for the nice Mercedes and vacations that were not really in the realm of what you should be earning for a lunch lady. But at some point they had to take time off, and amazingly the amount of money being earned from the lunchroom went up quite a bit. They're like, huh, why is this, you know, baseline trend suddenly jumping to a much higher amount? And they've just been stealing. So $500,000, 20 years. Don't do it, but it does exist. I was kind of surprised there was my junior high, such great lunch ladies, except when they're stealing, you know, large amounts of cash.
I missed my chance. I used to sell milk on the playground when I was in elementary school.
Like
5 cents a carton.
clandestinely.
No.
No, I actually did sell candy in that same junior high. So I was a newspaper, I delivered newspapers, and rubber bands. I used to wrap up my papers. Kids like to shoot them at each other, so they would buy 2 rubber bands for 25 cents. Pretty good markup there. So I'd have kept that level of markup throughout my life, like I'd be a zillionaire. But yeah, we talked earlier about Form 172. Do you mind advancing? We'll talk about what this is. So Form 172. Who knows what this is? Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah.
You've seen it.
Several.
You talked about it. Okay. Form 172. It is just where we keep track of who's allowed to approve expenses, sign checks, etc. Once a year, we need to update it. And you had mentioned before, who can approve expenses. Also for Nick Cook, you can set this up for him because if there are recurring expenses, we can structure it so that he says, you know, if we see a utility bill, he's just going to pay it as part of the authorized recurring expenses. Makes your lives easier because do you want to approve a $30 invoice every single month? Probably not. Not a good use of our time. You've got plenty of other things going on. Looking at invoices like that every time and signing off on them. Not a good use of your finite time. Who has corporate credit cards? Very few people in the wing. There are some held by like the wing commander. There are some who are doing projects out at Wendover where there's large construction costs. Otherwise, I think there are maybe 2 people in the unit who are in the whole wing who have credit cards. And that's just they have.
Wing administrator usually does.
Yeah, just a very small number though. Because that's another case where fraud can, or, you know, loss of important information can happen. So we just want to make sure that's locked down pretty tightly. Otherwise, reimbursements are generally the way things happen. Who can transfer funds? So for the wing, I think there are 2 people. I'm one of the people who's authorized to transfer funds between units. It's very exciting. It makes my life greatly, you know, it's been spiritually enriching, not materially enriching. And then we keep track of the finance committee members. They're also on there. Sarah, do you mind advancing? We'll show you. This is the Form 172 is like the full page. I had to trim it down, so this is just the key fields. Again, we talk about unit number, the date range. As we have a change in unit commander, so I'm not sure if you came on October 1st as a unit commander. I'm guessing not.
This is January. Yeah.
Okay, so
A long time ago.
Yeah, but when this happened,
But
you had to
yes.
put one of these together in January. It was not waiting till this annual update. But again, we talked about these recurring expenses, who can sign checks,
We're down.
very
One
straightforward.
more.
All right, Sarah, can we move on to the next
So you're
one?
using a wing form.
I'm gonna bring Wilma back just.
That is, I think it's a standardized form.
But that's a wing level form that you said you consolidated it, so.
Oh, so if you feel back, Sarah, this is just one,
He just shrunk it down.
the
You should
full
split
page
it.
has
Yeah, I
like,
know, and they're this big and it's this long.
yeah, so I tried to spit it on this page and like, it's not gonna work, so I just, cut and pasted and made like,
We did the same stuff on the same form.
Yeah. yeah, I just tried to make it fit in one place. Otherwise, there were like 12 lines down here and
But that's
You don't
just,
see that.
just for the presentation.
just for the
You didn't
presentation.
do that like for the.
No,
meeting.
there's,
Oh, okay,
no. This is
Wow,
just, so
I-
you can see it all in one place.
gotcha.
I should have written for presentation purposes only, do not use.
Example.
Yeah. Okay, next, Sarah. Oh,
You
here.
got it.
Oh, we're there, okay. So we need to budget each year. Key points, don't spend more money than you have. There's a unit this year who had expenses. Every month they kind of had a recurring expense, but as they were not getting like donations on a monthly basis, their cash balance was getting lower and lower, and they're going to at some point hit zero. They had a donation that was coming, and they knew it was coming soon, but the way the lines were moving, they were going to be in the red. And I, probably 2 months ahead of time, I said, hey, I see this is the pattern. You need to make sure you're looking at this and you're,
So that's a common question that I get from the SEIs is, I don't actually look at the amount of money in your accounts.
Yeah.
But is someone,
Oh, yeah.
the squadrons are on top of it, but
I'm
you're
looking.
up there at the
So,
wing, who's keeping an eye.
every month I send out,
Commander and the
Well,
finance.
you can't spend more than the account, can you?
you can spend whatever you want. You can't necessarily get reimbursed.
Well, that's, you can't get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Below zero.
And so, like I said, this unit was going to be on the path to be below zero. And they said, can we overspend a little bit now, knowing that a donation is coming? And there was stuff being worked through national and through this, one of the members' employers make a donation. And I said, we can't go in the red. So whatever it takes, if you need to talk to the vendor you have and say, we're gonna delay payment for a little bit, or talk to your members and say we need contributions now. But they found a way to resolve it. The donation did eventually come through, but it would have left them in the red for a short period of time, and we need to make sure we're not doing that. So we're looking at these actual spending versus budgets. Are we kind of in line with what we expected to spend over the course of the year? If you go back 2 years ago, there were all sorts of expenses that were planned that didn't materialize. When COVID hit,
Yeah.
we had to modify everything we were doing. So Wing Conference last year, that was my first Wing Conference. I attended it virtually. If anybody was here physically, like that would be surprising because it was a very lonely Wing Conference since nobody was here in person. But we have to modify our expenses, and as things change, and we know they're changing, we can modify the budget. Like if you send me a new budget saying this is our changed budget, that's fine. I want you to reflect what's actually happening and what you know to be happening. So in the company where I used to work, we do budgets, we do a revised budget several times over the course of the year as things change. So you don't get a penalty, you're not gonna be thought of as like a bad guy for changing things. It's just, we recognize things have changed. All right,
Well, that's a pretty important function of the finance committee.
Yeah.
Is to keep track of, okay, this money is set aside. Is it being spent? If it hasn't been spent, is it going to be spent?
Yep.
Is there another place it ought to go and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
As well as making sure people aren't spending more than their allotted amount.
those are all good things to do. Yeah, and we're ideally monitoring that and seeing, are there any trends or patterns that are affecting if we're going to be solvent? So solvent just means, do we have positive money or negative money? If it's negative, we should talk. Give me a call personally, and we can, find a way to make things hopefully better. So income, how do we fund ourselves? You talked about having dues for your squadron, and then there are donations as well.
We have dues and we have a couple of members that will make donations. We had a member that worked for one of the CPA firms, and they matched the donations from the employee.
Yeah.
But he no longer works with that CPA firm, so
Okay.
that kind of did it. But we did, this year, we actually did a contribution of appreciated stock
Yes.
equities. It goes to national, and 100% of the sale from that stock came to the squadron.
That's awesome. So if anybody has stock that has gone up in value, that's a great thing to contribute, because if you were to sell it and then donate cash to CAP, you're going to pay taxes on that.
You'd have 20% less to give.
Yeah. So these capital gains that you pay would eat away at what you can donate. If you give them straight to CAP, CAP can sell it, and you get 100% of that donation amount.
And you don't have to report that in income tax. But you get a full deduction.
Full deduction.
You don't report income.
Yes, so that's a good thing. I've done it before, not for CAP, but elsewhere. And
Yeah, it works really well with CAP.
oh yeah. We have a wing donation page. So for this unit that was going to be going in the red, we said, hey, we said, squadron, you need to figure out what's happening. They did. They talked to their members and said, can you guys contribute, guys and gals? And they had members contribute through this wing donation page, and that comes through. The wing does pay a slight amount of essentially overhead for those donations, but it's a method that works. We have to make sure that there's a mechanism for donations to come through. It's better than cash.
And it can be directed to a certain unit or just the wing?
Yeah. So I think it's probably good to notify Nick Cook
Okay.
and me that it's happening. Like, if we see random dollars coming in, we will do our best effort to get them tied back to the unit.
Okay.
So if you're aware of it, just
But
let
they
us.
can't, okay.
We just make all of our contributions through Zion, our local Zion Bank.
Great.
And there's not, they don't, obviously don't charge anything,
Yeah.
100% goes. And that form, is it an 82, is it, whatever form that is we fill out.
I think it's
That goes to
18,
Nick.
but yeah.
So I've not done it. So this is actually.
You just indicate what it's for, it's for the senior squadron dues, and you tell them the name of the person that gave the dues, whatever. He doesn't actually have to have that, but it's good to put in the report.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty well.
Great. Okay. And then finally, we had fundraising. I'm not sure if you've done Reads Across America. I know that's one that's common in our wing. Cadets are out selling these, and there are some costs associated with it, but there's generally a decent return for the units.
So the fundraising, I had a parent ask me the other day, they were in Big Five, and they will give discount cards that they can sell to like nonprofits. And I know we can't sell something that another company makes money off of, like cookies and all that other crap everyone else does. But does that sound? Because I guess it's just a discount card that the customer can take in and get a certain percentage off their purchase, and they sell the discount card for like $5.
I'll ask.
We do, I know, I'm pretty sure like some of the grocery, Kroger does this. Where you get a certain, you can designate, or there's a way to you get a little card, and then you load that with cash. And then when you use that card, the money goes to whatever organization the card is tied to.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that we have some units that are doing that.
When I was in California, it was like bonds or
Yeah.
like the Kroger or whatever. It was just, your rewards card that you have.
You
It
associate
was
with-
tied to.
Yeah.
Our.
So I'll take a look and see if we can do that. I know we're trying to get up some other
But
connections.
I would
Used to be
think, I
called
would
script,
think
but
something
now
like
it's-
that would be acceptable.
I'll take a look though. And
I can tell you this from an IG standpoint, if you think you've got the next great idea in fundraising, run it up the chain.
Yeah.
And if it gets to you at the wing level and you're still not 100% sure, to me, when it comes to money, because like you said, one of the things you can get in big trouble for in CAP is the money. Let national be the end all be all, because you can, even though you think you did a great job raising funds, there have been people brought up on fraud charges for, fundraising.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about IG courses is, boy, the stories I
Yeah.
hear,
Yeah.
that they thought they had the next great idea and really they were defrauding people.
Yeah. Okay, expenses, you all know what they are. We have hangers,
Well,
we
I
have
think
activities. Oh,
one more on
activities.
the fundraising. We have to get, if we're gonna do a fundraiser, we have to get it approved.
Yes, oh, that's an
On
important
the
point.
squadron level, they have to get it approved.
Yeah,
By the
And
wing
we-
commander as well.
but again, if the wing commander, use the finance guy. To, let the wing commander know, hey, if there's even like an inkling of this, or you don't have a long
Right.
history of this being approved.
Yep.
Run it up to national.
Yeah.
And let them be the one to say yay or nay.
But for any finance or any fundraising, wing commander needs to know about it and sign off on it. So that's the,
Yeah, oh, and that is
Super
one of the things you do look at, that's in the commander section,
Yeah.
the commander tab, but
Mhm.
that's one of the other finance things we look at on an SUI.
okay, we got 2 minutes left.
Oops,
Time gone by
sorry.
fast, but yeah.
Only a half hour? Wow.
No, it's
They
been,
went long.
we started a little bit late, but we have recurring expenses. Just make sure that we put this in the Form 172. The administrator can take care of anything that needs to be paid regularly. If there are larger expenses over $500, this is a single thing that's over $500, the finance committee needs to sign off on it. If you have a thing that's $250 and another that's $300, and they're individually less than 500, but add up to more than 500, you don't need finance committee approval. Just make sure that you have, regular sign off by your organization. Finally, well, not finally, but Civil Air Patrol is a tax exempt organization. We can, in many cases, have expenses that we don't pay tax on. There's a tax exempt form that we have. You can use that as often as you need. Please make sure you're not committing fraud with it. We hate for CAP to lose its tax exempt status because we have members who are misusing it. So just be smart. As always, be a good citizen. If you have reimbursements, you need to turn them in within 60 days. And if there's a mission that has expenses, turn those in within 15 days. We need to make sure we have the right knowledge about what expenses are out there. Some gotchas, we talked about many of these already. If you're missing a budget, that's going to stand out, and I will send you nastygrams saying, where's your budget? And then at some point, Colonel Hess will also say, your pieces. If you have large expenses that were not approved by your finance committee, that's also going to stand out and get attention in a bad way. If you have expenses that are more than the cash you have or expect to have, bad. If you're getting cash and holding on to like dollars, not good. And then again, fundraising, if it's not approved ahead of time, very bad. Don't do that. There's a finance crack. I think, did you say you?
I had a technician, yeah.
Okay, so I am not one. I've done all the things.
Let's chat.
Yeah. Like I just need to get it signed off.
Yeah, let's chat.
Yeah. But yeah, this is not a bad activity. There are some things where you have to actually like make donations. So I kind of like force myself to talk to the wing administrator and say, hey, can I go with you to make a donation? Because otherwise I don't touch cash or move donations, but that's a requirement. Probably something we can work around if you're not getting donations for your unit. Anyway, Nick Cook, wing administrator, there's me, wing finance director, and we have these documents right here that talk about a lot of the things that will affect your. Anyway, questions? I know our time is out and we need to get Sarah ready to present as well, but anything's going to cover, we can either talk now or later. Want to make sure you have this where you need to succeed with your finances and not get either local internal audit causing you headaches as you realize, oh, I did something wrong, or national as they look at your finances and say, things have not done. That's what headaches.
We have our finance committee meeting either before or after the very first meeting of the quarter. So
Okay.
we don't.
Yeah, but yeah, like let's
They're
avoid
easy,
headaches.
they're easy to forget and you get into July and think, did we do one in the second
Yeah.
quarter?
Same way with safety, crap.
Yeah. All right.
We just
But yeah,
do safety every meeting.
thank you for interacting. I'm glad it's not just a one-directional presentation because those are not my way of doing things.
Thank
You're all very helpful. Thanks a lot. Okay, Sarah, how can I help you?
I'm just gonna close this on down. Thank you for those who joined us. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
Oh.